Unmasking Narcissism. I'm going to give you 8 telltale signs so that you can recognize whether your mother is a narcissist or not. Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Rebecca P. Fox. I'm a psychotherapist and I'm going to talk you through this very complex and often misunderstood personality trait that is narcissism. We're going to look deep into the narcissistic traits that a mother displays, which definitely impacts children growing up. And my aim with this video is to really empower those who have walked this path to better understand their experiences. The first sign that I want to bring to your attention is being center of the universe. You see, narcissistic mothers need to have the world revolve around them. They will be constantly seeking attention and validation. And when they do this, they're going to completely dismiss the needs and feelings of everyone else, and this includes their children. And the way that they do that is they tend to take control of conversations and they redirect discussions to make it about herself, to make it about the mother. And they also like to interrupt people, and this is done to assert her superiority. She wants people to know where she stands in that family dynamic. And they're more than confident to say things like, look, we've had enough of listening about you. Let's talk about me instead. Or they will butt in and say, do you know what? That reminds me of when and it all becomes about her. So narcissistic mothers have to have the world revolving around them, and this is in all aspects of their life, and especially when it comes to conversations. Number two is a very common one, but it's again very difficult to recognize, certainly for children, and that is emotional manipulation. You see, narcissists in general, they possess a very keen ability and a good ability to manipulate others, and especially their children. And this also ties into the fact that children want to please their parents. It's a natural instinct for children. So naturally the children want to please, but narcissistic mothers, they use this to manipulate their children to have their needs met. So they dismiss the children's needs, manipulate them so that their needs can get met. And the way that they do this is by guilt tripping the child or emotionally blackmailing them into getting what they want. So let me give an example here. The narcissistic mother may say something like, do you know what? With everything that I've done for you, is it too much to ask for a little bit of gratitude from you because you're so ungrateful? And tactics like these leaves the child feeling as though they're responsible for their mother's emotional well-being. They don't understand that's what's going on, but it's a natural feeling they have. And this is enough to start that emotional manipulation and to ensure the child meets the narcissistic mother's needs. Now, number 3 is the illusion of perfection. Perfectionism is a hallmark of narcissistic mothers because they deem themselves excellent from their children, and they want their children to also be excellent because anything less is going to reflect poorly on the narcissistic mother. At least that is how they view it. And this is a huge problem. This creates so much pressure on children, pressure to perform, pressure to be a certain way, because if they're not going to be accepted by their mother. So it's not uncommon for children to become perfectionists when they're raised by narcissistic parents. This is a way that they feel safe. This is a way that they deem to be acceptable by certainly their mothers and society. Constant criticism becomes a way of life for children that are raised by a narcissistic mother. Comments such as, do you know that you could have done so much better? Or, I'm really disappointed in you. The way that you've just done this is not acceptable. And these unwarranted expectations leave such a sense of inadequacy on the child, and the child becomes constantly obsessed with seeking approval through perfectionism. So this is a really damaging thing that narcissistic mothers implement into their children. Number 4 is lack of empathy, which again is something we hear a lot when we're dealing with narcissists. And the truth is, empathy is a fundamental aspect of having healthy relationships. But of course, when you're dealing with a narcissistic mother, this is virtually non-existent. Narcissistic mothers, they struggle to understand or acknowledge the feelings of others, and certainly the feelings of their child. They will dismiss those feelings as inconsequential or inadequate or not necessary. And often if the child is going to express some pain or sadness, there's a high probability that the mother will very dismissively say, look, you're overreacting, or stop being so dramatic. And this emotional invalidation leaves very deep scars on children, because children are then taught to suppress their emotions, and suppressing their emotions is incredibly unhealthy. And then it develops into that not wanting to share how they're feeling because they're worried they're overreacting, or they're worried that they're being dramatic all the time. So this lack of empathy and this emotional invalidation is incredibly damaging for children. Now, the next sign is boundary invasion. Now, we hear it all the time, don't we? That you need to put boundaries in. Healthy boundaries are what, stop toxic people from getting in. But when you're a child and your mother's a narcissist, boundaries don't come into it. And the narcissistic mother will cross every single boundary for her benefit and her benefit alone. And this teaches the child that boundaries don't matter. Boundaries don't mean anything. And in fact, if they did start to learn about boundaries, they wouldn't know how to implement them anyway because they've never been successful. The way that narcissistic mothers do this is they will often overstep personal boundaries by invading their children's privacy. I've heard this numerous times from clients that the mother would insist on the child having a diary and writing daily in that diary of how they feel, what they've been up to, who they've been talking to. And actually what the narcissistic mother would do is then go in and read the diary, completely intrude on that child's privacy, so that they've always got something to have a hold over that child. And another boundary that they would overstep is intruding on intimate conversations. So when the child is on a phone to a friend or talking to a friend, the mother will listen into that. And if she's told that you don't want her to listen, she will then fly into a rage, claiming that, look, as your mother, I have a right to know. As your mother, I'm just trying to protect you. So I need to know everything that's going on. And this is the justification they come out with for their intrusiveness. But boundary invasion is a top one when you're dealing with a narcissistic mother. Now, number 6 is unpredictable mood swings. Narcissistic mothers will display erratic mood swings. And what this makes the child feel like they're walking on eggshells. The child never feels safe. The child never feels secure in the mother's presence, because one moment that mother may well be showering the child with affection and praise, and then the next they're unleashing their wrath on the child without any warning. And this is very much creating an emotional instability for that child, where volatility becomes a way of life, and that atmosphere seems normal and, dare I say, safe, because it's not uncommon for a child that's raised by a narcissistic mother to get into a narcissistic relationship, because that hostile, volatile environment seems normal and it almost seems safe. Creating that atmosphere of uncertainty because of the narcissistic mother's mood swings is very normal for a child when they're raised by a narcissistic mother, and of course it leaves the child wondering when the next storm's going to strike, and the child is constantly walking on eggshells, concerned about the mother's behaviour. Now, number 7 is gaslighting and denial. Now, gaslighting itself is a manipulative tactic that narcissistic mothers frequently use. Like, this is the top of their toolbox. And what gaslighting does is it distorts reality. They need to distort the child's reality so that then they can create a new reality for them. And when they start to distort that child's reality, the child is then going to question their own perceptions and memories. They're going to start to wonder if they are in the wrong. Let me give you an example here. Denying that past events have happened, insisting that the child is exaggerating or imagining things, using phrases like, look, that never happened. You're just being too sensitive here. This causes so much confusion in the child, and children genuinely are looking for that direction from the parents. So they don't necessarily think the mother is lying to them. It must be true. If my mother's telling me that that never happened and I'm being too sensitive, this must be true. And that's when that self-doubt comes into play. If the child injures themselves, this is another common thing. The child injures themselves and the narcissistic mother will claim that the child is overreacting. They need to toughen up, get and get on with it and stop making such a fuss. This is another way that they use denial to damage children. Number 8 is they have an extremely envious nature. Jealousy for a narcissistic mother goes hand in hand. And the reason for this is that narcissistic mothers view their children as extensions of themselves, and they often see them as rivals rather than independent individuals, which sounds crazy, right? What mother is going to be jealous of her child? It just boggles my mind. However, this is a reality when you're dealing with someone who's highly narcissistic, because narcissistic mothers, remember, they need to be the center of the universe and the world needs to revolve around them. So they feel very threatened by their children's successes or accomplishments. However, they do perceive the success as a reflection of themselves, of their own sense of worth. So what tends to happen is, if someone's praising the narcissistic mother's child for doing well in, say, a sport, the mother will then take a lot of credit for that. And they will say, you know, this is because I've helped them. They get that from me. I've always been very sporty. The mother has to come in on that. Now, if they can't get that in for whatever reason, they're going to then flip it a little bit. And when that child gets home, that child is going to get berated for being a success. And they will say things like, oh, so you think you're better than me? You think that you're better? Because the truth is you could have done it better. You didn't perform at your best. And that's a problem. So jealousy comes hand in hand when you're dealing with narcissistic mothers. And if this resonated with you, I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. And of course, if you've got any questions, hit me up in the comments too. And I can create videos based off of your comments. And please, guys, hit the subscribe button, give me a follow, and share this if it resonated with you.